If you couldn't already tell, I am a sucker for shows that are, well, dark in nature. Moriarty the Patriot is no exception. With it being the inverse story of, well, a Sherlock Holmes story, it's something that takes the titular villain of the Sherlock Holmes series and makes him into a hero, or more so an anti-hero. I think for that reason I find him also endearing because of anti-heroes like Taskmaster, Deadpool, other comic book anti-heroes that I've really grown to love. And I can't forget Moon Knight, obviously. I think that Moriarty the Patriot does something similar to Help, where it tackles humanity in a way that it allows for the people who do have souls to redeem themselves. The gothic nature of the show just oozes out, even in the beginning. We watch as a literal child is murdered before us in the first 3 minutes of the show. Instead of just focusing on the murder, it pans to different things, different gargoyles, the architecture, things that are very, well, human in nature, things that are demonic in nature. It is something that highlights the scene, as well as the gradients of the red and the black that frequently come into the show. By making the palette black and white and then highlighting the red of the eyes and the blood, it really makes everything pop on it. The details are more finite than anything. I think that because they show the trauma and the pain that the other characters go through, you see its validity, and when they kill the people that made their lives hell, specifically by giving them the chance to take vengeance into their own hands. I think that all of the stories in the first season are really, really good. I think that's another reason why I just instantly got hooked on this concept. Anything that's in Victorian England or somewhere around that time is something that me and my wife will instantly enjoy. So for me, this is something that was on the top of my list already. But I think something that kept drawing me back in was the music. The music builds the atmosphere in any show, and in Moriarty the Patriot, that is definitely the case. Here are some examples of how the music builds the tension, even when the music is not in the right places.
ミシェルミシェルお前はうまくやったよ
やはり動物と変わりないな。死ぬ前の声までも下品じゃないか。
なるほど。
大きな音がして気になって見に来ましたら。
This isn't even the opening song. The opening songs are even better than this. As you can now tell, everything in the soundtrack is absolute heat. In 2020, Asami Tachibana released this, their most accomplished album. I think their undisputed masterpiece is London's Hell. The song's so dark, most people probably don't listen to the lyrics. But they should, because it's not just about the darkness of London and the corruption of nobility. It's also a personal statement about the composer himself. Hey, Paul. Similar to the Help review, this is definitely going to be something that talks more on the heavier stuff. It's a show that definitely has that kind of grit and edge to it, but it's not going to go over the deep end with it. I think that because of that, I find myself endeared towards these kinds of shows. I know it's not for everyone, but this show is really, really solid as well. I think that Moriarty the Patriot does something that is very time-based specific and is coming from an Eastern perspective. So for them to focus on the villain is something that's actually, well, a new take on everything. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes is one of the most popular stories in Western media. So for an Eastern perspective to come on this, it's out of left field. But I think that it's something that benefits it because it talks about something that isn't inherently culturally theirs, but instead it takes it and sharpens it like honing a sword. It's something that reinforces everything that is done throughout the story, and it gives new life to a story that's been out for hundreds of years. As someone who's a literature major, I find these kinds of stories obviously very close to my heart. I have to read these materials anyways, so anything that has like source material that I've gone over is just instantly a win in my book. And that's not to say this is very faithful to the source material, because it is, but it's also not at all. Moriarty in the book's described as older, definitely not the playboy type that we're seeing in Moriarty the Patriot. But I think that's something that goes to their advantage because I think Moriarty the Patriot has a really strong cast as well. In that regard, Moriarty the Patriot has some of the best characters that I've ever interacted with. I know that a lot of people like Bungo Stray Dogs, and personally it's not for me, and I think that's heresy considering I am someone who likes literature. But for me, Moriarty the Patriot does what Bungo Stray Dogs doesn't do correctly. By separating the character into 3 different distinct individuals, you allow for the character that was originally conceptualized to be personified by 3 different characters with their own different personality traits. Bungo Stray Dogs does not do that. It just takes a one-for-one adaptation and doesn't allow for any growth. First and foremost, there are not 1, not 2, but 3 characters named James Moriarty, all distinguished by their middle names. James Moriarty William is the one that is our main character, whereas James Moriarty Albert is our secondary, as well as James Moriarty Lewis. I say main and supporting, but to be fair, all the James Moriartys are main characters. The primary antagonist is Sherlock Holmes, and I think it's very beneficial that we do not see him for the first couple of episodes because it allows for us to build our main characters. There is no threat on the horizon, so we don't have to rush the story. Some of the other characters consist of Sebastian Moran, who's also pretty cool. There's Inspector Lestrade from the Sherlock Holmes novels, Miss Hudson, Mycroft Holmes, John Watson, Fred Porlock, some of the characters that you would see in the actual Holmes novels. From there, the rest of the characters are relatively different. They're characters that are going to be part of the story, but not fully there. They're there for an episode or 2, and then they move on. It's kind of like an anthology series, but I think that because it has an overarching theme, kind of like What If, it is done very well. To do a whole series on Moriarty the Patriot or Sherlock Holmes, you wouldn't want to see the entire case be drawn out for all 12 episodes. Moriarty the Patriot's pacing is really solid in this aspect because each case is done in 1 or 2 episodes, sometimes 3. This allows for the show to breathe and actually flow as an actual show. They didn't rush the show. They gave it 2 seasons. They broke them up into 2 different seasons, partly because of COVID, but as a result of this, the show is very, very strong. Another show with a similar concept is The Alienist, but it does the exact opposite of what I just described. It takes the entire season to focus on 1 case. Because it does this, it loses some of its impact, but also the mystery and thriller aspects of it are really good as well. If you want a mystery live-action show, this is definitely one. Daniel Bruhl stars in it. He's the one responsible for Baron Zemo in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I would definitely recommend the show as well, as long as you have the attention span to go through long, meandering episodes with plot issues. The darkness of The Alienist is also echoed in Moriarty the Patriot. There's a lot of gruesome scenes. I like that though. That's pretty cool. Gore's awesome. Gore isn't done just for the sake of gore though. The gore is done because it's symbolic. It's something that comes from the nature of the kill that comes with the vengeance. I like that. It's specifically highlighting how this is connecting to the actions that they've done in order to get to this place. It would be one thing to see someone get run over by a car and then go, okay, now I'm just going to shoot you in the head. But instead it's like, okay, my name's John Kramer. I saw you run over someone. Now I'm going to drive a car through your appendix if you can't get the key to start, you know? Like the Chester Bennington trap. I know that's not the entire explanation for the Chester Bennington trap in Saw 3D, but I think it's still pretty accurate. Editor's note, it's actually because of what Jigsaw says right here.
You, your girlfriend, and your friends are all racists.
Move over, Martin Luther King. Jigsaw has racism covered. Anyways, getting back to Moriarty the Patriot, there are things that Moriarty the Patriot does increasingly well, and then there are things that it does, well, sloppily. I think for a show that has really good plot and pacing, it really does show that there was a problem with the studio when COVID hit. It really took a toll on the production, and you can clearly see it with the disconnect between season 1 and 2. I still think the show is amazing, but there is definitely a quality drop off after season 1. That being said, it's kind of ironic that season 2 is actually ranked higher on my anime list. More people like that season than season 1, but for me, I just personally couldn't get into it that much. But season 1 for me is amazing. The drop off in quality isn't that high, it's just a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit. I think that for me, there's always something about starting a story and then doing flashbacks, not just giving the origin story right off the bat. I want to see the character develop and grow. I don't want to see where they were and then this path of just straight overpoweredness. Moriarty the Patriot does this increasingly well as well because it takes its time to build the character without us knowing its backstory and then goes and shows us why he is the way that he is. There is this trauma that is in most of us. There is a reason that he is doing what he is doing. He's been scarred by the rich. He doesn't like them. This show is all about classism at its heart. It's about how the rich always take advantage of the poor. You might as well just call this communism the Patriot, because it really is Moriarty the communist. Insert communist propaganda Moriarty the Patriot memes here. Comrade Moriarty. Getting back on track, Moriarty is definitely someone who's defined by his trauma. In fact, it's a collective trauma that the three Moriartys all share. If you think this show was above showing child murder, you'd be wrong. I'm not going to say when it is, I'm not going to say where it is or what episode. It's in this episode right here. It is something that does define them and unites them because they come together to do this one gruesome act. This is where we see them come together and unite to set out against classism, to destroy the monarchy, to reset everything and give everything to the poor. Moriarty, James and Lewis specifically, weren't people who were very rich. They were orphans as well. Similar to Hulk, again, another comparison, I know. Instead of being these behemoths, these people that are huge and fighters, they're actually strong intellectually. James uses his brains to get out of these situations. He's smart and cunning. Someone from the very young ages is very intelligent compared to the peasants that are around him. What does he do? Instead of just holding this information in, he gives it to the masses. He helps them. He is one of the people. Even after he's been taken in by nobility, oh my god, it's just like Hulk, he still helps the peasants around him, even if it gets him in trouble. This is why people love Moriarty the Patriot. He is one of the people. He's one of the common folk, the middle class, the struggling class, the lower class. We're not one of the rich people. He's one of us. We see our faults in him. And yes, I know it's bad to project onto a character, but when you see characters that you can relate to, someone who struggles with poverty, someone who struggles with food insecurity, you're going to see why you latch on to that. For me personally, growing up, I didn't always have access to food. I didn't always have the money like other kids when going to lunch. I had to go through the assisted lunch program, and thank God that was a thing, because otherwise I wouldn't have anything to eat. If anything, going to school was the only way that I knew for sure I was going to get a meal. With that being said, it's obvious why I would resonate with a character like this, someone who has struggled, someone who hasn't had all the food in the world. It's moments like these where you understand this is why you like a character like this. Moriarty the Patriot isn't just a show about class struggles, it's about personal struggles. And I think we all, in some sentiment, can relate to that. Most of the stories that I can become endeared to are ones that I can personally relate to. It's something that we all can empathize with. Things that we relate to are obviously going to be more impactful towards us. Moriarty the Patriot establishes a character and then makes you empathize with him, rather than making you empathize with the character and then establishing it. It's already gotten the groundwork done. This is a show, by all means, is almost perfect. It's one of the shows that I would put in my top 10, but because of some of the stuff that happened in season 2, I have to keep it down in an 8 out of 10. That's not to say that this show isn't amazing. It is. You should give it a watch. It's something that I don't think a lot of people are going to give it a chance because of its nature. Most of the shows that people watch in anime are shonen or maybe slice of life. Not this sign-in mystery show that has amazing music and just pops its entire pussy out, you know? But they should watch it. They should. They really should. Because it's a show that deserves it. With that being said, why does every manga and anime feel like they have to do a deviation in the ending? This is the biggest gripe that I have. The manga ending is superior in every single way, similar to Hell. I just don't understand how shows can continue to do this. By doing this, they've effectively cut off any stories from even happening. Sure, there are the OVAs from Moriarty the Patriot, but this is my biggest and most prominent issue with the series. I did not like the ending. There could be a great story, but if the ending is terrible, everyone can collectively agree that it's not as good. I think the ending is the biggest con that I have in this entire show. And if you don't like the ending, you should do what I did, which is go and look at the manga. It doesn't deviate that much, but it is vastly different. These small contrasts in the story to make the arc a bit different change everything. And I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but that is what makes the manga ending a lot better compared to the anime one. Thank you all for watching. I do appreciate every one of you for leaving a comment and liking the video. The Hulk video did amazing in the first 24 hours. I really want to say it's heartwarming. I want to branch out. I want to do this kind of content, and to see that kind of love immediately is just amazing. Thank you guys so much. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. It does boost the videos, like with the Hulk video. And apparently 75% of you guys aren't subscribed when you watch the video, which is a little weird, but thank you, YouTube, for that information. Typically, this is going to be a weekly series, maybe even a bi-weekly series. I'm going to try my best to make this as good and as edited as possible, so please bear with me as there will be growing pains. Thank you guys, I love you all, and Happy New Year.